Sure, it was not a good night for the Brewers at AmFam South down in Chicago. A loss to the Chicago Cubs. We'll get to that. But who might the Brewers be interested as the trading deadline nears? We'll get to all that coming up next on this edition of Locked On Brewer.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Everybody, welcome to Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. My name is Chuck Freeman, longtime sportscaster here in the state of Wisconsin and proud host of Locked On Brewers. Get us daily Monday through Friday. I'll tell you everywhere you get us a little bit later on here in the show. Coming up on the show, though, we're going to talk about who the Brewers might be interested. Do they have a shot at any of these guys? And what's going to cost you if you're going to get some of these guys, if you're going to play at the big boys? We'll do that coming up here. And, of course, a loss in Chicago to the Cubs. This show is brought to you by Booking.com. Booking.yeah. The right state can make you a fan of every city, any city, even your rivals. Check out Booking.com for your place to stay. All right. Not a day goes by, I don't think, anywhere where people don't ask, are the Brewers going to be active in the trading market? Who are they interested? What are they going to go after? Who might be they interested in? Well, that's anybody's guess. We were surprised a couple of years ago, well, a long time ago, 2008, when they went after CC Sabathia. That was like a move that would have never have guessed the Brewers would have made. Never would have guessed. But Doug Melvin made that move for one specific reason. They had not been to the playoffs. They had not been to the playoffs since 1982. He felt with that 26-year drought that they had to end that drought. And they thought they were going to give up whatever they could to get CC. Yeah, all the big market teams wanted CC, and they eventually lost him to free agency, okay? But CC they were able to get. I believe it was like the first weekend of July, like a Sunday night, that thing was finalized. So they got CC Sabathia, and it turned out to be one of the best trades, arguably one of the best trades the Brewers ever made. And I can argue if they had Ben Sheets healthy, the CC Sabathia Sheets thing could have carried them past Philadelphia and pretty far. I thought that 2008 team could have been special. CC eventually ran out of gas, but he was great. He was MVP Cy Young great in 2008. Some of you guys will remember that. Some of you guys might not remember back that far. I happen to thinking that was one of the best trades, in addition to the Brewers getting Raleigh back in 1982. Actually, in 1981, winter of 81. But we're talking about 2008 when they went out and got CC. CC was just a terrific move. And the Brewers since then have not made a move equivalent to getting CC. Some of the guys they've got in recent years, Taylor Rogers, Matt Bush. God, was that a terrible move. That guy couldn't stop giving up home runs. Trevor Rosenthal, just to name a few. Guys who came here with big hopes and big disappointment. And there is a long list of Brewer relievers that they went out, and sometimes they gave them some prospects for some of these guys, and they came here and they were just duds. Absolute duds. You have no control of it. You roll the dice. Taylor Rogers was terrible here. Could have been something special a few years ago. I thought was not able to do what he did here that he did in San Diego. Matt Bush couldn't stop giving up home runs. But you get the point. The Brewers have not been good in the trade market getting pitchers over the years. So who might they be interested right now? Well, who are the names out there? And we're talking top of the list names. Okay. We're not talking bargain basement game names, because let's face it, we're all kind of sick of that. But let's face it, that's the option that the Brewers are probably going to go. Like, we could go talk about some of these names on this list I got here, But let's face it, the Brewers aren't going to be in the market for any of these guys. The days of going after a CC Sabathia or even a Mike Moustakas, those days are done. Those days are done, at least right now. Young talent, the Brewers aren't giving up oodles of young talent for any of these guys. And I don't know if there's any pitcher out there who really bowls me over. To me, there's not one guy who I'm just like, oh, I got to have that guy. But we're going to get to that coming up here in a little bit. So I'm going to take a quick drink here. I'm thirsty as heck, man. I don't know why. I'm just thirsty all day today. All right. I took a small drink. I could have taken a long, cool drink there, that lemonade. But first at the top of my list, Jack Flaherty. Plays for the Tigers. You know Flaherty from the Cardinals. Played in Baltimore last year. Was not good. He was a trade deadline acquisition by the Orioles in the offseason. He was not good. He was like, I wrote his record down, 1-3, 6.75 earned run average with the Orioles last year. He was a deadline move, and it did not work good. So, offseason, Flaherty signs with Detroit. One of those contracts that he's trying to prove himself, kind of like a Rhys Hoskins contract, but only on a smaller scale, about the same kind of value for a year. Rhys has got a multi-year deal. Flaherty's got a 1-year, $14 million deal with Detroit. He signed with Detroit. He didn't really probably want to sign with the Tigers, but that was his best offer at the time because he was looking to get his groove back on, and he certainly has done that. Flaherty this year, 17 starts, 7-5, a 3.13 earned run average. The ERA in prior 4 years was lingering about 4.25. Now, I'm not willing to give up a big-time prospect for this guy, not at all, especially since he's a rental. He is not under contract next year, so you'd have to renegotiate him. Flaherty on a so-so team, the Tigers. We saw him there. We saw the Tigers a couple of weeks ago, but he's having a real good bounce-back year. 7-5, a 3.11, a 3.13 earned run average. I take Jack Flaherty, but I'm not giving up any of my top prospects at all for Flaherty. Another guy, all-star from the White Sox, Garrett Crochet. A strikeout leader in the American League, 2 years control. Now, this is the kind of guy the Brewers would be interested. But again, if you're gonna get for Garrett Crochet, it's gonna cost you more for Crochet than it is Jack Flaherty, basically because you got those 2 years of control. So I'd love to have Crochet, but I ain't giving myself up any of my young arms down in my farm system. Okay, I'm just not doing that for Crochet. Yes, I think he's playing with a bad baseball team, the White Sox. The White Sox are absolutely just awful. Just an awful baseball team, okay? Just an awful think 2002 Milwaukee Brewers, and you got the White Sox only 2 times worse. But Crochet, you're going to have to give up some prospects. Mizorowski, probably. I'm not giving up the Miz. And by the way, I did get asked on ESPN Lacrosse today if the Miz would be joining this roster. Would they call it Mizorowski? I don't think they would. Good question by John Papadopoulos, the afternoon man in Lacrosse. John Pop asked me if they'd bring up the Miz. I don't think so. I would say the only time they'd bring up Mizorowski is if like Peralta went down and you were in desperation. That's when I think they'd bring up Mizorowski before the September call-up deal. But Flaherty, yeah. Brewers have enough young guys they're trying to battle through, including Terang. We're going to talk about him here coming up here in a little bit. But Garrett Crochet is another one. I'd be interested, but I'm not giving up Mizorowski. Eric Fetty. I'd throw the darts at Eric Fetty. See where it lands, what it's going to cost me. 31 years old. He's on a 2-year, $15 million contract right now. But he's a guy it wouldn't cost you as much as Crochet. Crochet is he's one of the benchmarks out there because of the control. Fetty, again, an older guy. Nathan Eovaldi, Might cost you a couple of top prospects again for Nathan Eovaldi. Zach Eflin is a guy I would love. Zach Eflin, he's in a contract right now, 3 years, $40 million. But the Rays are in the wild card hunt, you would think. A lot of teams are, and that's why I'm not seeing many moves right now. Eflin, what is he at? 16 wins, Zach Eflin. Tyler Anderson, that name has died off a little bit. 34 years old. We talked about him when they played the Angels a couple of weeks ago. But it's going to cost you some prospects for any of these guys. So those are if I was the Brewers, these are the guys who would be on my wish list. Flaherty, Crochet, Fetty, Eflin, and Anderson. Those would have been the guys. Anderson hurt. Just crossed my mind. I kind of threw that one in at the end. But Eflin, Fetty, Crochet, Flaherty, those are my top 4. So those are the guys who I love. But not loving them enough to give away farm system. And I know, I don't think this team is to a point where, you need to go for it. I think 2018 was one of those teams where you're all in and, you can give up a big prospect or two. I don't think this is it. Although I do think the Brewers are going to make some moves. Are they going to make a blockbuster move? They're not going to do that. They're not making a blockbuster move. But I do feel a couple of moves are pending. Probably lower level moves. Okay. Hopefully better than a Dallas Keuchel move. But do I think they're going to get a Flaherty, Crochet, Fetty, Eflin, if the Rays are dealing him? These are all guys who would be targeted toward big markets. It's unfortunate that's the way it is. Now you hear the Yankees and everybody, Baltimore, the Dodgers, the same teams that MLB wants to market. And by the way, the Dodgers on Sunday Night Baseball couldn't have them on when they played the Brewers, but you had them on when they played the Red Sox on Sunday night. You found a way to get the Dodgers on against the Red Sox, but you couldn't get it against the first place Brewers, ESPN, a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I wouldn't get my hopes up. Okay. All this is good for talk show fodder, podcast fodder, but I don't think the Brewers, let's face it, we do this every year with these guys. We say, we love this guy and this guy. How about this guy? And we talk about these guys for hours. And what happens? They end up in Baltimore. They end up with the Red Sox, the Yankees, Dodgers, Padres. Soto, let's bring him here. Yeah, he's going to the Padres. Guys like that. Oh, Scuball's another guy. Got big time arm with the Tigers. Pitched again last night. I believe he beat Cleveland last night on Monday night. That's another guy. Well, Skubal would obviously love to have him, but the Brewers would have no shot at him. None. No shot. Skubal, the Tigers, is just no shot. No shot. Now, if the Brewers were sellers, who would the Brewers be trading at this point? We'll get to that coming up here next. Also, we'll talk about just a bad night at Wrigley. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Booking.com. Summer is heating up. This is travel season, especially in the great state of Wisconsin, with summer travel heating up, whether you're traveling up north, Door County, maybe you're going over Minnesota, or maybe a trip down to Wrigley here the next couple of days, or St. Louis in August. Hey, get on board with Booking.com. Yeah. Hotels, bed and breakfasts, vacation rentals, resorts, so much more on Booking.com. You'll find your perfect stay, even in a place like St. Louis. Any sports fan I know has gone to Booking.com and booked everything, all the accommodations they need, everything on Booking.com. Hey, you're looking for the right hotel stay. Maybe you're, you and the missus, or you and the girlfriend, or whatever, will want to make a trip to the Door County with all the bed and breakfasts up there and nice rentals, vacation rentals. Well, go to Booking.com. You'll find the perfect stay. I did in Fish Creek a couple of weeks ago. So go to Booking.com. Booking.com is the place to go. You can find places on the lake. Just fantastic. Booking.com. Also, The show is brought to you in part by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Yeah, if you got in on the Cubs, slight favorite on Monday night. Brewers come right back on Tuesday. I'm sure that game will be about to pick them again. This summer, FanDuel hooking up all customers with a boost or bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everyone all day long, all summer long with FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Head on over to FanDuel.com and you'll see what all the buzz is about FanDuel.com. And wow, they are America's sportsbook. I'm trying to find the Brewers and Cubs. I do not see a line. Let's see. It's got to be up somewhere. Brewers and Cubs. Yep, the Cubs with Talion on the hill against Colin Ray. The Cubs a 115 favorite. So about pick them on both ends. Head on over to FanDuel.com. Start making the most of your summer. All the baseball is right there. FanDuel, check out the odds. Download. Go to FanDuel and check out that website. Download the website right now, FanDuel.com. Start making the most of your summer with FanDuel.com. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Good to have you along here. You get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major downloads. Wherever you download your podcast, we are there. All your great podcasts are on all the apps I mentioned and more, including Locked On Brewers. We're there because we're the #1 podcast on the internet. #1 Brewers podcast on the internet. I wish we were the #1 podcast. I cannot tell a lie, but we're the #1 Brewer podcast on a reason, because you great Brewers fans out there. So also go to YouTube, search Locked On Brewers on YouTube, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. That alerts you every time we drop an episode. Please, by all means, put your comments down on YouTube. I read them. Lots of good stuff. We drop overnight. So I try to drop the episode, midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning on YouTube. So the late night Brewer fans have a chance to read something and see something and view something. Follow me on Twitter as well. Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. If the Brewers were sellers, what would they be selling? Let me take another quick drink here. God, that's good. Somebody asked me once, what do you drink? Just diet lemonade, calorie-free. Remember, don't drink your calories. If Hoskins were having a better year, the Brewers would be dealing Hoskins in a second. They'd be dealing Rhys Hoskins if he was having a better year. I said this when they traded for Hoskins. I said, if the Brewers are not doing well in July, Hoskins is gone. Good as gone. So if the Brewers are sellers right now, Hoskins would be gone. Just gone. Adames for sure. Adames, they kept him, and they have no intentions of signing him when he becomes a free agent. He would be gone right now. He would be long gone, Willy Adames. He would be on every message board out there, if there are any. He'd be on all the trade talk sites talking about what team is Adames going to go to. But he's staying here for the rest of the season. The Brewers are not trading him. Not trading him at all. But he'd be gone in a heartbeat if the Brewers were not in this thing in the first place. Christian Yelich. Would you trade Christian Yelich if the Brewers weren't in the pennant race right now? Up there in the batting average race, challenging for a hitting crown. Got some years left on that contract. I'm telling you what, I think about it. If the Brewers were on the downside right now, and I think if they were on a decline of 1 or 2 or 3 years, if they were on one of those slides like they were in 2015 and 2016 and at the end of 2014, I'd trade Yelich. Yes, I absolutely would. If you were on the downside right now, you'd be a fool, because having a guy who's making $30 million on a team that's out of the pennant race, you'd be an idiot maybe not to trade. Of course, you wouldn't trade him now. But if the Brewers, I think, in the next couple of years, if he keeps this up, and let's say they're not in the pennant race next year, I think he's on the trading block. I think he is. What starters would you trade? There's so many young guys in this team. You wouldn't trade any of them. I wouldn't trade none of them, of course. even though Turang is in a slump right now, he's going to bounce back. I mean, none of these guys. Garrett Mitchell, I'm going to hold on for him a little bit. Someone asked me today, but Sal Frelick. No, I wouldn't trade him. I still think there's a real good upside. There's the intangibles there with that guy. He's a gamer. I like Sal Frelick. I wouldn't trade him. Not at all. If this is, again, of course, if the Brewers were out of the race. What pitchers would they trade? If Devin Williams was healthy and chalking up saves, I would trade him. The Brewers weren't in the race. Brewers weren't in the race. McGill is long gone. Don't buy yourself any Trevor McGill jerseys, because Trevor McGill will be long gone with his pedigree, what he's amounted to, the numbers that he's racked up this year. Trevor McGill would be gone to somebody right now, but you're not trading him, obviously. Colin Ray, he'd be another guy. You wouldn't get a heck of a lot, I don't think, for Colin Ray because of his age, but you might get a low-level prospect for Colin Ray. He'd be off of this team too if you weren't in the pennant race. So the guys who would not be here, when you look at all the sheets out there, the websites and who's available, and the Brewers, if they were sellers, Hoskins, Adames, Yelich, I think would be on there. Ray, Williams, and Williams if healthy, and McGill. Probably a few others on there as well. But I just kind of jotted some down before I came on the air. Chuck Freeman here on Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Yeah, the Brewers did play Monday night. It was just a terrible game. We'll get to some of this. Just a terrible game. Just bad outing. We'll get to that coming up next here on Locked On Brewers. eBay Motors is the way to go to buy parts for your car. Drive patience, passion, the formula for winning championships is all what keeps your number one ride or die alive. eBay Motors has got everything you need to maintain your vehicle, level it up to peak performance, superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED lights, and more. Guy down the street swears by this stuff. 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. If you're a guy who likes to work at his garage and fix your car, man, eBay Motors, this guy down the street tells me he loves it. The eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed. Yeah, eBay Motors is definitely the way to go. And the man down the street highly recommends it. All right, the Brewers. Reason why this is this final segment, we say this for last, because the Brewers just played a dud of a game. There was no life to that game. No life to that game on Monday night. Brewers stranding runners on base, 1 of 9 with runners in scoring position. Turang struck out 3 times. Kurt Hogue from the Journal Sentinel put it best, said, hey, 12 games, Turang batting 111. And he even mapped out even further back to June how long that Turang, go to this article, he'll talk about that, about how Turang has just been struggling over the last several weeks. But Monday night, 3 Ks, just got to work through it. Just got to work through it. And again, this is part of your maturity as a ball player. These pitching coaches out there, these analytics people, they're dissecting all the swings. They're just like, what is good? What is his weaknesses? What are his strengths? And they're finding out all these guys. They got full-time guys, Major League Baseball teams have, to dissect this stuff. It's all analytics. And these coaches watching the tape with the pictures and all that. I mean, it's not even tape. It's all watching it on iPad and on, and watching, well, not even film anymore. It's just video of these hitters. And they break it down. And there's analytic guys. They got this all figured out. So Turang's got to make an adjustment, whether he's in a slump or whatever. He's just going through a bad rut right now. A lot of guys had a tough night. Tobias Myers did not. I thought Tobias Myers pitched well enough to win. 2 earned runs in 5 1/3 innings. To me, that's winning baseball. Pitched well. Assad pitched great last time at Wrigley Field against the Brewers back in May. 6 walks, less than 4 innings, didn't give up any runs. And I think I saw in Hogue's piece as well that that's like the first time or one of a handful of times it's been done since the 1940s, where you had that kind of stat line. 6 walks, less than 4 innings, and no earned runs. Pretty unusual. 6 walks. The Brewers couldn't push across any runs. Notice when I said looking for players earlier in our podcast, I did not mention any offensive players because where are you going to go? And quite frankly, none of those guys who might be available do anything for me. None of them. They're not any better than some of the guys we got now, even though our guys struggle. I mean, the guys the White Sox are throwing out there offensively, please. Maybe I'll run through some of those offensive names tomorrow night if we have another 3-1 Brewers loss, which I'm not expecting because I'm hoping Colin Ray is going to go out there and give us one. All right. Colin Ray Brewers, like I said, a slight underdog with Italian on the hill. Yeah, Jameson always gives a good outing. I feel like he pitches well against the Brewers. He's 7-4 this year. All right, that's going to do it for this edition of Locked On Brewers. Again, get us on Google, Spotify, Apple, on all the major podcasts we're on. Go to Locked On Brewers on YouTube, search Locked On Brewers, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. Follow me on Twitter, Chuck Freeman, FREIMUND. We are here with you every day on Locked On Brewers, talking Brewers baseball with you. That's what we do. It was a bad night. Don't worry about it. Lost to the Cubs. Don't worry. It's 14 games over the 500 mark. Still flying high in this division. Brewers are the best team. You need me to pump you up. Brewers are still the best team in this division. Like I said, and even a lot of the radio shows I'm on, are they the best team in baseball? No, but they're in the top 10. Okay. Let's see if they can get better by making some moves. And those players who come here, because I think the Brewers will make a few moves, those players that come here produce. It helps. It's great that they're interested in making moves. I think they are. I'm led to believe they are. Those guys they got to hit on. Not like some of the duds like Taylor Rogers we talked about. Some of those guys, Trevor Rosenthal. We don't need those kind of guys. We need guys who are going to come here and be a part of it. Don't have to be CC, but don't be Taylor Rogers either. It's going to do it. Chuck Freeman, Locked On Brewers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Get the Brewer game on Tuesday night, 7:10 on SiriusXM, the SXM app. Search Brewers. You get all 162 of Brewers baseball. And, of course, we are your conversation for Brewers baseball right here. After the game, late night, Tuesday night, Locked On Brewers, part of Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every day. Have yourself a great Tuesday, everybody.